이스라엘 성지순례나 이스라엘 회복에 대해서 더 성경적으로 알았다니 너무 감사하고요.
이번에 그 세미나 기간을 통해 가지고 또 제가 새로운 면으로 좀 많이 알게 된 것 같아요. 특히 이스라엘의 그 지나온 역사라던가 처한 상황이라든지 또 앞으로 복음화시키고 하나님 앞으로 인도하려면 우리가 어떻게 해야 될까 진짜 기도 제목을 많이 안고 들어가고
이곳에 와서 다시 생생하게 모든 강사님들의 그런 강의를 들을 때마다 다시 제 마음에 뜨거움이 올라오면서 진정으로 이스라엘에 대한 파수꾼의 역할이 무엇인가를 다시 깨닫게 됐고요.
아카데미를 통해서 하나님의 마음, 이 땅에 그 쏟는 마음을 저희들이 알았고 12명의 강사님들을 통해서 풍성한 하나님의 그 말씀과 마음을 저희들이 받았습니다.
이스라엘의 메시아닉 주들의 경제 사정은 별로 그렇게 넉넉하지 못합니다. 성도들이 그러니 목사님들이라고 해서 특별히 더 나을 것도 없지요. 그렇다고 해서 메시아닉 주 목사님들 가정의 자녀 교육비나 생활비가 또 남들보다 덜 든다라고 또 보장할 수도 없는 일입니다. 과연 직업을 가져야 될 것인지, 그럼에도 불구하고 끝까지 목회만 전념해야 할 것인지, 이런 고민은 이스라엘의 메시아닉 주 목사님들뿐만 아니라 아마도 우리나라의 목사님들도 함께 공감하는 그런 고민거리가 아닐까 그런 생각을 해보는데요. 제가 지금 와 있는 곳은 이스라엘 북쪽의 하이파에 있는 케렘엘 메시아닉 콩그리게이션에 와 있습니다. 이 콩그리게이션의 목사님께서는 비즈니스도 하고 목회도 또 성공적으로 잘 해나가신다고 합니다. 바로 스테판 실버 목사님이신데요. 어떻게 비즈니스와 목회가 성공적으로 양립할 수 있는지 오늘은 좀 그런 부분에 대해서 실제적인 이야기를 들어보도록 하겠습니다. 목사님 반갑습니다.
Shalom, Brad.
예.
Thank you very much for coming and for having me on the show.
제가 오늘 교회 와 보니까 교회 이 위치도 굉장히 좋고 또 이렇게 들어오는데 이 교회 스태프들도 굉장히 친절한 것 같아요. 케렘엘 공동체. 케렘엘은 무슨 뜻이고 이 케렘엘 공동체에 대해서 좀 소개를 해주시죠.
So the name Kerem El means God's vineyard. Kerem means vineyard. El means God in Hebrew. And thank you for the compliments about the building and the staff. Actually, this building does not belong to our congregation, but we do use this facility for our meetings. This is where we meet right here in this hall. And as you say, the location is very unique. We are situated right in the center of Mount Carmel. So this area here is actually called Merkaz HaKarmel, which means the center of the Carmel. And there is only one Messianic congregation, which is all Hebrew speaking in this area, and that is Kerem El. Kerem El was birthed as a daughter congregation of Carmel Assemblies. It started as a Hebrew-speaking home group, so that's how it was formed right from the beginning. The vision was to be a Hebrew-speaking home group, a Hebrew-speaking environment where people could bring their family and their friends. And that home group just began to grow more and more until it became a full congregation and a fully independent congregation as well. My wife and I were very blessed by God to be led right after we got married to be part of this congregation just when it was birthed. So we were basically part of it right from the beginning.
그럼 성도들은 몇 분 정도 되십니까?
In the congregation there are probably about 150 or 160. Yeah.
그 정도면 이스라엘에서 규모면으로 어느 정도 됩니까? 큰 축에 속하나요? 아니면 보통입니까?
So in Israel there's probably about figures say about 300 congregations, up from about 200 maybe a number of years ago. So the number of congregations is always rising. I would say that the largest congregation in Israel would be maybe I don't know, maybe 400 or 500 people, and then you have everything going down to literally just like house congregations where it's just a number of families or a number of people together. So if I had to situate Caramel, it would probably be a medium-sized congregation. But one of the unique things about it definitely is that it is only Hebrew-speaking. So there are a lot of congregations in Israel that don't only focus or are not solely Hebrew-speaking. They may be only in another language like Arabic or Russian or English. Some may be mixed as well, having a mixture of languages. But Caramel really focuses on it being an Israeli congregation, and therefore it is all entirely in Hebrew, and that also is relevant to the area that we're located in as well, which is all very Israeli and it's very Hebrew speaking. So that's part of the vision of the congregation also.
이곳 캐러멜 콩그리게이션도 와 보니까 이제 어느 정도 좀 규모도 있고 뭐 큰 교회는 아니라고는 하지만 그래도 비교적 안정적으로 교회가 운영되는 것 같고 바로 또 이 옆에 켈라하 카르멜 콩그리게이션도 있지 않습니까? 그래서 이 하이파 지역에 크진 않지만 그래도 이렇게 안정적인 메시아닉 콩그리게이션이 여러 있는 걸로 보아 이 하이파 지역에 살고 있는 유대인들은 예수와를 믿고 이 메시아닉 콩그리게이션 나오는데 큰 불편함이나 뭐 어려움이 없기 때문에 그런 건가요?
I think you could probably say that Haifa is maybe one of the cities in Israel or one of the areas in Israel that is more open to the gospel. There are certainly pockets and areas, neighborhoods within Haifa which are very religious, where it would be very difficult to reach with the gospel or to penetrate with the gospel. But Haifa is a very multicultural city. It's actually in Israel known as the city of coexistence, because maybe as opposed to Jerusalem where everybody's fighting there all the time, in Haifa you have a lot of Jews, you have quite a lot of Christians, mainly Arab Christians, but Christians nonetheless. And those would be considered more kind of traditional Christians. And then you have a Muslim population as well. And so these three faiths, so to speak, get along quite well. And so that's why Haifa is known as the city of coexistence. And just generally speaking, I think it's a relatively secular city as well. And so when a city is more secular, then usually there is more plurality, and then also more openness to accept other things. And so people are probably more open here than what you would find in maybe more traditional towns or cities. That's not to say that there isn't opposition. I wouldn't say that there's really persecution. There used to be years ago, before social media, there was the anti-messianic or anti-missionary organizations did persecute a number of congregations, not in the city of Haifa per se, but in satellite towns and cities. There were fire bombings of congregations, and there were congregations that had the tires were slashed on the vehicles while they were parked outside during the service. There was a congregation that I was attending at the time. This is how I know the story of what happened there. And even at evangelism events in the city, you know, many times the religious would come and they would hit and they would spit and they would push and try and take the materials off people. But I think a lot of that is calmed down now, and so there is definitely an openness and a coexistence here that allows a very fertile ground to share the gospel.
이스라엘에는 큰 도시들이 많이 있지 않습니까? 뭐 예루살렘, 텔아비브, 또 브엘세바, 나사렛, 그리고 이제 하이파. 뭐 어느 하나 중요하지 않은 도시가 없지만 특별히 이 하이파를 놓고 봤을 때 성경적으로 또 영적으로 어떤 위치에 있습니까?
There are definitely a lot of kings of the mountain, as we call them, in a spiritual sense, things that are still trying to dominate this mountain and this city. You know, the mountain or the city is situated on a hill, and high places always have significance in the Bible. They were always the places where the people would go up, and on the mountain is where they would burn the incense, and that's where they would worship various gods. And that was the same issue in the story of Elijah and the prophets of Baal. It took place on the highest point of the mountain. So there are still many, I think, spirits that want to try and dominate this city and this mountain. I was saying beforehand about the coexistence. Now, coexistence is good on the one hand because it can open up the door for the gospel, but it also opens up the door for other religions and other beliefs that are false and that are not of the one true God, the God of Israel, like Islam, the Baha'i faith, which is an offshoot of Islam. They also have a very, very strong presence here in the city. They have built a number of shrines. This is one of the landmarks of the city, is the Baha'i Gardens. That brings with it a lot of, I believe, spiritual forces that are trying to oppose God and what He's wanting to do here. And probably something else that is relevant for most other major cities in Israel is also the LGBTQ agenda, which started off in Tel Aviv, and then it also moved to Jerusalem, and now it's also very heavy in Haifa as well. Also, again, being a relatively secular city, then there is a lot of openness and probably I would say support towards the LGBTQ agenda, and so that also brings with it things that oppose what God is wanting to do here, I believe.
그런가 하면 목사님은 여기서 목회도 하시지만은 또 개인적으로 비즈니스도 하고 있다는 얘기를 들었거든요. 그 비즈니스 하는 게 목회에 영향은 주지 않습니까?
One of the things that we believe about here in KRML is having a team of leadership. So I'm only one of the pastors in the congregation. There are two others besides me. And also two of us, we also have our wives who are part of the team. So it's not all on the shoulders of one person. I probably wouldn't want to be in a position where I was the only person in leadership in a congregation. And so we really believe in an eldership, basically, model of a congregation, and that's what we have here in KRML. And so I also, besides pastoring in the congregation, I also work with investments, investing or facilitating and allowing people from around the world to invest in Israel's capital market. And it certainly takes up time during the week, and a lot of my focus is on that besides pastoring the congregation as well. But I think that's one of the beauties of having a team of elders, is that the workload is spread between a number of people and it's not all on one person. I think also beyond that, looking around to quite a few of my peers throughout the country, this is probably something that we're going to see more and more of. More Israelis who are not only focused just on a congregation or just in ministry, but that are doing a number of things together at the same time. Quite a few friends of mine who are also doing something quite similar. And, when you have a passion for a number of things, then I believe God finds a way to allow them to work together. And I'm blessed to be able to have that possibility in my life, to be involved in business and in investments, which is very connected to Israel, very believer-based, you could say, but also very focused on building the local community and investing into the congregation and really shepherding the congregants here in this congregation in the city of Haifa. And I think ministry is, as we know it, ministry is one way of serving God, but also working in the business world is another way of serving God. And neither of them, one isn't more important than the other, I don't think. For a lot of people, their ministry is their workplace. God has placed them in large companies. God has placed them as service givers. God has placed them as maybe a small business or a startup business in order to influence that sphere that they are operating in. And that is their ministry. Now, sure, there are congregations, and that's another side of ministry, and congregations are needed and they're essential, and that's the biblical model for how all these people that are scattered all over the place and that are doing all these different things, how can we all come together as a body and build each other up? But I don't see that one is more important than the other, because if we're all inside the congregation all the time, but people don't receive the tools that they need to go back out and influence the world, then really it just becomes a closed group of people that have no influence on society. On the other hand, if everybody's only out in the world all the time and there's no connection within the congregations between each other, then people can become weak and they don't receive the encouragement and the edification that they need in order to be the salt and the light that God has called us to be. Yeshua said himself, we are the light of the world, we are the salt of the earth. And that's something that we believe in very strongly here in Caramel, is being that light and being that salt. And so we, as a congregation, we try and strengthen as much as we can and push people forward in their businesses to succeed as much as they can, because we understand that the more that they succeed, then the more we as a community can also grow and influence our surrounding. So they both go together, they're inseparable.
비즈니스를 하다 보면은 뭐 비즈니스가 잘 될 때도 있고 또 잘 안 될 때도 있는 게 또 비즈니스 아닙니까? 그런데 이제 교회에서 목사님으로서 교인들에게 설교도 하는 그런 입장에서 어떻습니까? 이 비즈니스에 대한 어떤 부담감이 있지 않습니까? 나는 반드시 잘 돼야 된다, 비즈니스가. 그래야 또 교인들에게도 할 얘기가 있다. 그런 스트레스가 있을 것 같아요.
I don't feel like I'm under any kind of stress, no. I do what I do in the business world. A lot of it, again, comes from my belief in connecting the nations with Israel. And that's why a lot of our focus in that is to allow mainly believers from around the world to invest in Israel. You know, I trust in God. I know that He has called me to these things at this time. And if this is where He wants me to be, then He will also provide. It says, be anxious for nothing, but in all things through prayer and supplication, make your requests known. And the peace of God that surpasses all understanding will guard your hearts and your minds in Messiah Yeshua. And so that's a verse that I probably repeat on a daily basis, probably like many other people. If God calls you to something, then He will also provide for you. He will walk before you. He will make the way for you. And I thank God I've been doing this for quite a few, well, not quite a few, but a number of years already. And I've never lacked. And I don't think that I will lack in the future either. Because the Lord is my shepherd, and He supplies all of my needs, much more above and beyond what I could need even.
목사님이 하는 비즈니스에 혹시 손님 중에 교인이 찾아온 적은 없었습니까?
Yes, we do have a lot of clients from within the body of believers in Israel. And we also have a few people from within the congregation as well.
교회 목사님으로서 목회하는데 큰 불편함을 느낀 적은 없고요.
No, it doesn't bother me in any way. I think that if we can support each other in the business that we do, then I prefer that. You know, if I have a problem in my house that I need someone to come and help me fix, I would prefer to be able to call someone from within the congregation and to be able to give them that work. And so, you know, even when we look at the Jewish communities throughout history, one of the main reasons that they succeeded so much was because they kept everything in-house, right? Your cousin was the banker and your brother was the accountant, father was the repairman, and somebody else was the shopkeeper. And so everything, it was like an economy within an economy. If within a congregation, you know, I have a need and you can supply the need, and it's going to be for pay, then I would prefer to give my money to you and to give you the business than to go to someone outside of the congregation and give them the business. Especially if I know that you're in need and that you need to make a living, then that's what I would prefer to do. So I think if we can also serve each other in these talents and giftings that God has given us in our businesses, then this can be good for the congregation as well.
물론 이스라엘하고 한국하고 이 신앙적, 문화적 이 정서가 많이 다르긴 하지만 어떻습니까? 한국에서 목회를 하는 목사님들 중에 교회가 굉장히 어려워서 살해받기도 힘든 그런 상황에 있는 목사님들에게 우리 스테반 실버 목사님께서는 목사이면서도 직업을 가질 필요가 있다, 가져야 한다 이렇게 얘기하실 수가 있을까요?
I think that's an interesting question. You know, I think with everything, any kind of question that we have, we always have to go to the Bible to take our answers from there. And we see that Paul, Shaul, the apostle, he was a tent maker, and he went and worked along with his ministry work in order to make his ends meet as well. He didn't want to be a burden on the local congregation, and so he went and he worked. And so I imagine him working during the day and then maybe taking breaks and going and sitting in the synagogue and going and talking in the middle of the city center. And he did what he needed to do in order to supply for himself, and not only for himself but also for those who were with him. You know, we read also later on that we are to go out and to work, and if we don't take care of our own families, then this is something that we're told is a bad thing. It's not a good thing. And so I think definitely, if we can have a congregation and where there can be people that are involved in ministry and that are supported by the ministry, then this is good. But if not, then you have to do what needs to be done. And that means that if there are smaller congregations that don't have the ability to have a staff that are full-time, then there are other ways to go about doing that. One of them is to have everybody working, and then part of their time then they also give towards the ministry, or maybe a part-time job only. But really it's about how do we get everybody together and do what the Lord has called us to do. And I believe He always gives wisdom in these situations. And ultimately we have a reality that we're faced with, and we have to deal with that reality. And so smaller congregations or smaller churches that have more difficulty with income, then I would say by all means they probably should be working. And then I think this is also one of the, like I said before, the beauties of having a leadership which is made up of a number of people. So it's not just one minister, but when you have a number of ministers working together, accountable to each other, supporting each other, building each other up and encouraging each other, then people can also be working and also be dividing the workload of the congregation, of the shepherding, of the administration, of all of the things that happen in a congregation among themselves. And then it's not all falling on one or laid on one person's shoulders. So there are a number of models to look at in the Bible for that, but I think really all of our answers in any case come from the scriptures.
비즈니스에서도 또 메시아닉 컨그리게이션에서 리더십으로 이 두 가지 길을 성공적으로 잘 걷고 계시는 우리 스테반 실버 목사님으로부터 오늘 여러 가지 유익한, 우리가 꼭 알아야 될 그런 이야기들을 많이 들은 것 같습니다. 오늘 이렇게 귀한 시간 내주시고 귀한 말씀해 주셔서 고맙습니다. Thank you very much today.
Thank you, Brad.
Thank you.
Great being